Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, Prime Minister Netanyahu returns from the signing of the Abraham Accords right into 2 weeks of quarantine. Meanwhile, the nation prepares for 3 weeks of lockdowns as coronavirus restrictions are approved. And finally, if you've had to scrap your plans for the holidays because of the lockdowns, don't worry. We've got a whole list of ways to celebrate the right way while maintaining health standards. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his family have now returned from Washington, D.C. for the landmark signing of the Abraham Peace Accords with Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates. Supporters and protesters greeting them upon their arrival. But the Netanyahus tried to keep their distance, at least a little, driving home to enter 2 weeks of quarantine. And none too soon, the Trump administration now reporting that a White House staffer has tested positive for COVID-19. This a day after hundreds, including many dignitaries, gathered on the White House lawn for the Abraham Accords signing ceremony.
And it's a small number of cases. Maybe it's not even cases. Do you have any idea if there's...
Yes, we're not going to confirm the identities of the individuals.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yes, but it did not affect the event, and press was not around the individuals.
And it's not anybody that was near me. From what I heard, a very small number. I think you can probably give the number out later on when you find out what it might be. One person? It was one person. Okay? It was one person. So not too much, not a person that I was associated with. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Still, despite the White House insisting that the staffer was neither near Trump nor the event, better safe than sorry, especially as many at the event were not wearing masks or properly distancing, and as White House correspondents are reporting, not one but a couple of positives among the staff. Meanwhile, back in Israel, daily coronavirus infection numbers are looking a little bit better today, but not good enough to avoid lockdowns. In fact, cities like Beersheba and Holon, which until today have had among the lowest infection rates in Israel, are now both red, as defined by coronavirus czar Professor Gamzu's traffic light outline. Nittany Manson with more.
Taking a dip from previous days, overnight coronavirus infections fell last night to about 4,537 new cases in 24 hours. This making for an infection rate of 8.8% as opposed to the 10% in days past. Still, total active infections now number roughly 45,000, with 549 in serious condition, and the death toll rising by over a dozen to 1,165. The highest number of reported COVID diagnoses this week coming from Jerusalem, Bnei Brak, Ashdod, Modin Ilit, Petach Tikva, Beersheba, and Holon. So what to do? Well, the government's response has been to enact a 3-week-long nationwide lockdown beginning 2 p.m. on Friday. And during this time, travel away from the house beyond 500 meters will be prohibited unless going to work in or receive essential services like in food, medicine, government, and press. Public transportation will also be cut to just 50% of normal operations and within a more limited time frame. As for new and notable restrictions not imposed during the first lockdown, these include a ban on visiting private homes of others, as well as permission to arrive at Ben Gurion Airport for approved flights at least 8 hours ahead of takeoff. Many critics, however, have been quick to point out that they think the lockdown's success is unlikely. Both Health Minister Yuli Edelstein and Deputy Minister Yoav Kish even predicting as much, saying that daily infections are not expected to plummet anytime soon, and that restrictions may have to be extended yet again. Well, in the meantime, Israeli President Reuven Rivlin is apologizing for the frustration caused by the government and commiserating with the citizens in an address Wednesday night, while calling on Israeli authorities to do better and for Israeli citizens to comply with regulations anyways.
אני פוגש את מנהלי בתי החולים הנפלאים, את האחיות הנהדרות והמסורות, את הרופאים שעובדים מסביב לשעון, את מד"א וצוותי ההצלה, את החיילים ואת הקצינים, את המדענים ואת המתנדבים. רואה מקרוב את המסירות הבלתי פוסקת, את ההקרבה שלהם. למען שלום הציבור, למען המאבק בנגיף המשתולל, למען הערבות ההדדית שלנו בעת משבר. ואני מבקש מכם, ואני גם בטוח שבקשתי היא נכונה, תנו בהם את אמונכם.
And now joining us with more ahead of the coming 3-week coronavirus lockdowns, we have Associate Dean for Research at the Israeli Faculty of Medicine of Bar-Ilan University and the Director of the Galilee Medical Center Research Institute, Professor Haim. Professor, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Now, Professor, President Rivlin is asking for our trust, even after apologizing for breaking that trust. But meanwhile, Health Minister Yuli Edelstein is saying that he doesn't actually believe that this will be effective, this lockdown will actually work, and that we may have more strict measures coming up ahead. Who should we believe?
Well, I think both politicians are trying to make an important point, and it's really the result is going to be up to us. It's mutual responsibility and how closely we adhere to the guidelines that will determine the outcome. In any case, even if there's full compliance due to the behavior of the virus and the incubation period, we're not expecting an immediate drop in infection rate within 2 to 3 days. Hopefully, if things are done properly and we do follow the guidelines and regulations, within about 10 days, we should start to see some significant improvement.
So there is a logic, to this lockdown. There is, a good reason. It's not just happening again.
I think it's clear that none of our leaders wanted to institute this lockdown. It has major implications on mental health, on physical health, on the economy, on many aspects, which made it really a last resort. But if you just look at the graphs and see the accumulating number and the rapid increase in the number of daily infections, I think really there was no choice. And as opposed to a week or two ago when this was talked about, I think there was much less resistance now because most of us, scientists, physicians, and the public have understood that there's really no choice in the matter.
I see. All right, Professor, thank you so much. Moving on now, whether we like it or not, the closures are coming. So how do you stay in line and avoid those massive fines that the police are talking about? With us to answer is Israeli police spokesperson, Superintendent Mickey Rosenfeld. Mickey, thank you so much for being with us. Now, what is it going to be like on the ground? How are you preparing?
Well, full preparations are being made by the Israeli National Police to have a full implementation of a lockdown, and we're talking about the different cities and different neighborhoods. More than 7,500 police officers, including 1,000 IDF personnel, will work together in order to make sure that people will be limited in the moves in the different areas, and this is absolutely vital that the areas will be closed down in order to prevent the ongoing spread of the COVID-19, which unfortunately has reached such a tremendously high number over the last 24 hours, more than 4,500 cases.
So are you, is the focus going to be on red cities or really just general closures across the nation?
It's going to be full closure across the nation, beginning from Friday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for 3 weeks and 2 days, in fact, until the 11th of next month, which is on a Sunday. And then there'll be a new cabinet decision whether and how we open up slowly but surely. But that all will depend on the numbers of the specific people that have been unfortunately confirmed or not confirmed with COVID-19 until then. That's where we stand.
So what exactly are your orders, though, in terms of enforcement of this closure, and how should citizens really be acting to stay in line with this closure properly? Because there's still a lot of questions out there.
Well, the guidelines are very clear. It's clear to everybody, the movements 500 meters from one's house. It's clear about 10 people gathering for prayers inside a building, 20 outside a building, and no doubt the emphasis will be in terms of police units in and around the different areas, getting the message across to the public, making sure people understand the importance of not getting together with families over the festival period. We are doing everything possible, working together, first of all, with the public in order to prevent the spread. But of course, our units will be in different areas to give out fines if necessary. We'll continue to visit people that have been confirmed with COVID and make sure that they're self-isolating. And a lot of police activities will take place on the ground, no doubt, throughout the next couple of weeks.
What about things like exercise, riding bikes or running, potentially beyond that 500-meter limit? Because we've heard from several authorities within the health ministry that this lockdown is going to have a little bit more focus on mental health.
Well, people will be allowed, according to new rules and regulations, to move around and walk around if necessary on their own. That will be okay. That will be permitted. And our police units will carry out regular patrols and activities. But there are a number of different guidelines that have to be kept to in order to make sure that, of course, we're taking control of the situation together with the public on the ground. And you're going to see a lot of officers, a lot of units, a lot of volunteers, a lot of IDF personnel all working together and coordinating, both on the ground, both using drones, both patrolling different areas, and a lot of roadblocks are going to be set up.
All right, Superintendent Mickey Rosenfeld, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. All right, meanwhile, as most Israelis from all communities are getting ready for the closures, thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jews from the Bratslav Hasidic sect are still attempting to make their way to Ukraine for their annual Rosh Hashanah pilgrimage. Meir Rubenstein and Israel Porush, mayors of two red cities in Israel, Beitar Illit and Elad, have now traveled to Uman, Ukraine, where the Hasidic pilgrims visit the grave of their religious leader, Rabbi Nachman, every year. And as you can see, despite Israeli and Ukrainian orders not to attempt to travel amidst the pandemic, many worshippers are following suit. At least 2,000 pilgrims from Israel alone having reportedly already reached Uman as well. But many have been met on the border by Ukrainian guards who are refusing them entry.
Я не знаю, хто кому обіцяв пропуск 3000 громадян. Є постанова Кабінету міністрів України, яка чітко забороняє в'їзд іноземних громадян на територію України. Всі, хто зараз перебувають тут, на цьому місці, були попереджені про те, що в Україні діє заборона на в'їзд іноземних громадян, в тому числі для громадян держави Ізраїль, Сполучених Штатів Америки, Бельгії, всі, хто будуть намагатися в тому числі відсвяткувати Новий рік в місті Умані. Вам це було чудово відомо.
So several hundred Hasidic Jews then, including children, are now stuck by the border with nowhere to go and little to no resources.
На даний момент іноземні громадяни фактично перебувають на території Республіки Білорусь поряд лінії кордону з Україною між пунктами пропуску. За попередньою інформацією, їх там може знаходитися близько 500 осіб.
So much money we give you every year and year again. And you decide to accept the manipulative stand of the Israeli government. We beg you, the Ukrainian government, please allow us to get in. Look, so many people are just sitting here. We came without food, without water. We were told that we will get in. The presidency, the ministry says that we will get in, but eventually look.
Well, in fact, with a recent spike in COVID-19 cases of their own, Ukraine has imposed a ban on foreign entry until the end of September. But in the meantime, authorities are reportedly providing the pilgrims with tents, water, and food. Speaking of travel, the coronavirus has put the kibosh on most flight plans this year, but not just for leisure trips, with people flying on business now fearing the worst every time they approach the airport terminals. And that has in turn affected the whole employment market. Joining us with more is managing editor at CTech, Ron Friedman. Ron, thank you so much for being with us. Now, this story starts, I think, with reports from Israeli companies like Scream and NSO Group, which apparently warned employees that they'd have to suck it up and fly or be out of a job. Is this the near future of business culture?
The business culture is changing on many fronts, and this is one of them. So everybody knows that the first kind of sector that was impacted by COVID-19, the pandemic, were airlines. But now here we are 6 months in, and the rest of the industry, and especially the high-tech industry, and especially the high-tech industry here in Israel, are feeling the pain. Israeli companies are extremely dependent on foreign sales, and in order to complete those sales, at the end of the day, there's so much you can do on Zoom or video calls or using technology. At the end of the day, people have to get on a plane and meet with potential clients, investors, face to face, and that's simply not happening. So the story goes, and this is two companies you mentioned, SQ Ream and NSO, but we heard reports from numerous other companies, which employees are saying that we were given an ultimatum. Either we fly or we're out of a job. Now, you got to understand the companies, they're in a tight spot. They need to keep the company afloat, even if it's just to provide jobs to their employees. And to do that, they feel that they need to send people on the way. They're also being pretty generous when it comes to compensation, offering their workers the best conditions when they're flying, and promising to put them up in, luxury apartments and the like, hotel rooms when they get back, when they're forced into 2 weeks of quarantine.
So is this kind of understanding behavior and this flexibility maybe seen across the board, or is there really big changes to kind of the fabric of the company, worker confidence, satisfaction, feelings of safety, and their basic needs being met in the workplace, things like that?
Well, kind of big picture is that over the last 6 months, the whole power dynamic has changed. Israeli tech companies have always been on the search for talent. There's always been a shortage of tech workers, but here we are, companies have closed down, smaller companies especially, and the job market is it's theirs for the choosing. Companies have they're spoiled for choice when it comes to candidates. Everybody wants to work for them. So that whole dynamic is changing. They have more control, and employees are rightfully scared to lose their jobs. So they're being more accommodating if it comes to flights, if it comes to working from home for hours on end. The whole dynamic, and it's not just here in Israel, it's all over the world, is really shifting, and we're seeing that it's a market controlled by the employers now.
All right, Ron, thank you so much. Shana Tova.
Thank you. You too.
Moving on, Rosh Hashanah, or the Hebrew New Year, begins tomorrow evening, and that means it's time to clean the Western Wall. Twice every year, rabbis of the Western Wall oversee the collection of thousands of notes, prayers and requests for forgiveness, or slichot, stuffed into the cracks of one of the holiest sites in the Jewish tradition. Though this year, of course, is a bit different.
כמו שאתם רואים, מדי שנה אנחנו מנקים את הפתקים, מפנים אותם מבין אבני הכותל המערבי. השנה, לצערנו הגדול, רחבת הכותל המערבי לא הייתה כמדי שנה שרבבות ומאות אלפים ומיליונים של אנשים שפוקדים את רחבת הכותל המערבי, אבל קיבלנו הרבה מאוד פתקים מהעולם שנשלחו כדי להטמין אותם בין אבני הכותל המערבי.
Now, the Western Wall is the last standing remnant of the second Jewish temple complex that was destroyed by the Romans in the year 70. And primarily, this biannual tradition culminates in the burying of the prayers atop Jerusalem's Mount of Olives to make room for new slichot, though there are a lot fewer notes to be buried this year. Because this year, in light of the coronavirus, visitation just isn't what it used to be, and the Western Wall complex workers have also added sanitization to their cleaning duties.
This year has been completely different than previous year. In this period, eve of Rosh Hashanah, the main Jewish New Year here at the Western Wall. Usually the plaza is full packed of 10 and thousands of people coming every night for the prayer of the Slichot, asking for forgiveness. This year the plaza looks completely different. 2,500 people until tomorrow, and from Friday, the closure, less people will be able to come next week before the most important day of the Jewish year, Erev Yom Kippur.
In the meantime, in light of reports that Israel intends to allow limited but continued visitation to the Temple Mount, the Islamic Waqf Authority has retracted its decision to close the Al-Aqsa Mosque during the lockdown. So the holidays are coming, but you don't know what to do. How can you properly celebrate the new year without bending or even breaking lockdown regulations? Well, we've got some ideas for you, and they're coming with our next guest, Rabbi Kenneth Brander, the president and yeshiva head with the Or Torah Stone movement. Rabbi, thank you so much for being with us. Now, first off, in brief, how does one normally mark the Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot holidays that are coming up?
Well, normally what happens on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is it's a day of family getting together, especially on Rosh Hashanah. It's also a day of prayer. The focus is prayer. The focus is the theater of experience is the synagogue. And so this year, however, because of the challenges of the, that the government has correctly put into place, and also not only challenges in Israel, but all over the world, Jewish world, because of the protocols of COVID-19, the whole idea of prayer in general, we have to honor the goals of the prayer of trying to create a relationship with God and connect with God. But because of the circumstances of this challenge, Jewish law requires us to condense the service to prioritize health and safety. So we've put together a prayer book for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that focuses on the religious, spiritual, and liturgical priorities of the prayer service, keeping in mind our responsibility for health and safety.
So you've released this is the Machzor, right? And you've released this for free download on your website, which is amazing. But what else is the OTS movement really providing? I understand that there are a number of other maybe events or functions that you're offering that people can maybe celebrate, right?
Yes. So first of all, we have 277 ambassadors, shlichim, emissaries all over the world. So we're involved with, thousands and thousands of congregants and over 100 communities. So we're working globally. But in Israel itself, in 400 different parks, as well as in apartment buildings, we're blowing the shofar. Again, this is a service. We're not looking for any compensation, donations. Sure. We're here to show the fact that Rosh Hashanah is for all Jews. And Rosh Hashanah celebrates universal ideas for all humanity. And so you can go on our website, ots.org.il, and you can simply just look at where you can find a place near you where you can hear the shofar if you're not planning on going to one of the local, maybe street minyanim, or one of the, or your local synagogue, but you just want to hear the shofar with your family. We want it to be a spiritual experience, not just for the adults, but also for the children. And all of the 400 different locations will not focus on just the adults, but we'll also focus particularly for the family.
Wow. All right. Well, I want to make sure that our guests know, our viewers know exactly where to find this. So you can find a Shofar in the Park event near you by, again, visiting ots.org.il. You can also get the abridged downloadable Machzor at the same place. And of course, I know that you're also helping people by sending certain products and maybe kits to do their own services at home.
Yes, we're doing that, but that's Rosh Hashanah is tomorrow, so that's not exactly.
It's a little it's a little soon.
That's not a promise we can still honor. But the bottom line is, you can download this Machzor. It's really a pleasure for us. It will help you whether you're in a community setting or an individual setting, and you can participate in Shofar Park in over 400 locations throughout Israel.
Rabbi, thank you so much. Shana Tova.
Thank you. Shana Tova.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight you can expect clear skies and an average low of 77 or 25 degrees Celsius. Then as the holidays begin this weekend, get ready to blast the AC, temperatures rising slightly and holding all weekend long at highs of 97 Fahrenheit or 36 degrees Celsius. And now before we go, of course, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel. I don't even know what to say. Is that dog actually even dancing? Or is that that dog is very excited for the holidays. I love it. All right, that is it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.43 shekels to the American dollar. And for more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for watching, and happy holidays.